Each and every week right here in Las Vegas Tonight, we have some fascinating interviews. Hi, I'm Dale Davidson, your host, and we've outdone ourselves this time. One of the most impressive guests that I've ever had on my show, Dr. Robert Morey. Dr. Morey is a theologian. He's an apologist, which means he defends the faith. And in fact, he's executive director of his own organization called Faith Defenders. We're going to talk about his latest books, and we're also going to just survey Christianity, its Jewish roots. We're going to talk archaeology. We're going to talk lots of different topics right here as we enjoy him. We recently had part one of this interview, and now I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Morey in his second part. I think you're really going to enjoy this.
What we all do. There are no contradictions. It's like, well, the most famous, because I came from an atheist agnostic, I was raised that.
Really?
My father says religion is a racket, money,
It's all about
power,
the money. Right.
and sex. That's
Right.
it. That was it. And I had a very negative view of religion. It's something that just simply wasn't needed. But I liked reading contradictions in the Bible because I was a wunderkind. So in 10th grade, I was tapped by Yale University for higher math and stuff like that. Means nothing, except confusion to this day. One of the most famous contradictions is that Matthew says as Jesus left Jericho, he healed two blind men.
Okay.
Luke said as he was approaching Jericho, he healed Bartimaeus. Now wait a second.
Right.
You can't both leave Vegas and approach Vegas at the same time. Contradiction number one. Were there two men or one man? And how come he has a name and he doesn't have any names? Well, you look at this until I stumbled across Harrison's book, Archaeology of the New Testament, which explained that when these hairy, garlic-eating, farting Italian soldiers wwho were eating pork, you just realize to a Jew this was horrible. The Italians came in with salami.
They hated him. Oh, yeah. They hated him.
They tried to move into Jericho, and there were riots and riots, because if a Gentile were to touch the tomatoes in the market, they were unclean and you couldn't eat them. So what they did, they went 1 mile down the road and built the Gentile Jericho. Now the little wheels are beginning to turn. You have the Hebrew Jericho, you have the Gentile Jericho. They were both called Jericho. And if you were a beggar or you were selling something, where would you stand between the two for all the traffic?
Sure.
Matthew wrote to the Jew as Jesus was leaving the Hebrew Jericho. Luke to the Gentile as he was approaching the Gentile. That's where this miracle took place. Now, Matthew doesn't give you any names because he didn't go around and ask. Luke, who were they? He found Bartimaeus. Tell me your story. But he didn't find the other guy. Maybe the other guy died. Maybe he moved to Rome. I have no idea. Left town, whatever it was. But he only found, and as a scholar, a trained medical man, he said, I only met the one guy, Bartimaeus. I'm only going to talk about what I know. And he left out the other guy. Now, he didn't say only one was healed. See that little word only? Okay?
Wasn't there.
Wasn't there. So you could say 20 people were healed, and he could tell about one of them. There's no logical contradiction whatsoever. There are no contradictions in the Bible. It's one organic whole. You have the Old Testament, you have the New Testament. They are called New Covenant writings. Don't confuse the Bible with the covenants. The literature called the Old Testament and the New Testament is a historical record of the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, and don't confuse the two. So to my Presbyterian friends, I said, I believe in the unity of the Testaments, but the diversity of the covenants. And they said, what the? You're saying the Old Testament? I said, no, you didn't listen to me. You're confusing two things. You're making pickles and bananas. Pickles are not bananas.
And they don't go together.
Historical records which tell us how the covenant, the Benaith, was formed, how it carried out, when it ended, what was its problem. And there were eight covenants anyway. And when Jesus said, this blood is the blood of the new covenant, then we know about the new covenant, the new contract, but the New Testament is only recording it. It isn't it. It's a record of it, but don't confuse it. It's like a newspaper who tells you what happens, and you signed a contract with the station for $500,000 a year as the MC and the host of the program.
That sounds good to me.
That sounds good to me. But anyway, we've gone afar. But the idea is that the latest book that I want to work on is called The Structure of the Bible. Now, if they want to peek at, I have a 2-hour lecture on this. If they go to faithdefenders.com,
Which I have. It's a great website. Faithdefenders.com. We'll put it up here.
All right, they can purchase that, and I go through the Old Testament, the New Testament. The New Testament is manifestation, proclamation, explanation, application, expectation. You got the whole New Testament in front of you because every book is assigned a specific place. So the books of the Bible are not arranged according to chronology in terms of when they were written.
Or length, because I've heard that too.
Not according to length,
Right.
not according to author, subject matter. Now you think, 2,000 years, over 40 different authors, who was alive during that period to make sure every scroll was put in the right place? The Eternal One,
Sure.
Ha'alom. Ha'alom. So you say, Hamelech Ha'alom, Baruch Hashem. Only God could have overseen the order of the scrolls. And it goes back. Now, the liberals invent. There was the Council of Janine, till I investigated, where is Janine? Nobody knows. Who attended? Nobody knows. Is there a record of the council? No. Now, why do you say there was? Well, because even the liberals say the order of the books of the Bible manifests intelligent design that conveys information of such a high order. Somebody had to put this together who was really, a bunch of Einsteins put this together. So they look around in history and they can't find a committee, so they invented one. They invented. No, you go right back to the
So
synagogue.
there literally was not a group, contrary to what we've been taught, not a group that decided on the canon.
Yeah, I said, show me the group, where, when, and they finally says, well, by faith. I said, look, you think a group of Joes sat around, hey, does anybody have a book they want to put in? I do. All right, let's put these here. Let's make a Bible up to date. What we do know in terms of facts, and most people don't know, archaeology has dug up the synagogues, pre-Christian. Now think, the scrolls were kept in the back of the synagogue. We even have Jesus, when he came to Capernaum into the synagogue, hand me the scroll of Isaiah. Now, the scribes were in charge of that.
Right.
Did he run in the back and the scrolls were thrown all over the floor? I'll find it in a minute! And scrolls were flying? Or do you think these Jewish accountants,
Had it all numbered and lined up. Yeah.
they had it on the wall were wooden pigeonholes. A blind rabbi, I know it's right here. He could have taken that
Five
scroll.
down, three over.
Five
from the
down,
left, yeah.
3 over. How do we know? Not because the wood is left, it's long eaten, but the impression on the back of the wall shows it was there. Why was it there? Because the books have always been organized going back as far as we can go. Genesis, Bereshit, Bara, Elohim, Hashemayim, Baras. Genesis starts the first book. Job was the first book written, but it's not the first book there. It's Genesis. Why? When the beginning began, Bereshit, out of nothing, Bara, God, Elohim, back to the bara, created out of nothing, Hashemayim Haaretz, the heavens and the earth. That's the beginning. And when you get to the book of Revelation, we have the new heavens and the new earth, and the old passes away in a big clap.
All
big,
part of the new
it's all
covenant.
gone. So you have from the old to the new, paradise lost, paradise regained. As Schaeffer used to say, it is the only religious text that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I've studied Hinduism, Buddhism, you name it, I've read it. They don't have a beginning, they don't have a middle, they don't have an end. They're in endless cycles called cyclical reason. Everything is just going to happen, and this is the way it's always been. Maybe it's on the back of a turtle, maybe it's a ball rolling about. I don't care, but they don't have a beginning, they don't have a middle, and they don't have an end. So when you pick up the Encyclopedia of Divine Wisdom, 66 scrolls, it begins at the beginning and ends at the end, and the coming of Messiah, like this, Mount Calvary is the cross, and everything goes up, and then everything comes down, and it's the cross that divides human history. And it's so clear. I've had unbelievers tell me, I'm going to read the Bible now. Now I have a structure that enables me to read it, because you can tell me why the first 5 books. I said it's called Torah, which means law. The laws of creation, the laws of nature, the laws of marriage, the laws of germination with seeds, the civil laws, religious law. If you want to know about law, go to the Torah. But each book has a different emphasis. So Genesis, I will now tell you in 2 minutes. You want to know the outline of Genesis?
Sure.
4 great events, 4 great people. Can you repeat that?
4 great events, 4 great people.
Is that hard to remember?
No, so far, no.
Creation, fall,
Creation, fall, okay.
and you've got flood,
Flood.
and tower. And who were the 4 great men? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. You now have the whole outline of Genesis. That easy. If you go to 1 Samuel, 24 books, the first 12 chapters, when David was good.
The last 12?
The last section, when he was bad. So, I mean, every book in the Bible is made and structured that a child, you'll never forget Genesis. 4 great events, 4 great people. That's all it is. You got it. You got it. Very easy. And once you understand the structure of the Bible, and if you read it with the brain in gear, see, most people read the Bible with it in neutral. And they put on the gap. A lot of noise, a lot of fumes, but do they go anywhere?
No.
You got to put it in gear, and then you understand why this book is where it is. And once you understand it, you say, makes perfect sense. Now
So
I
your
can read.
reading plan is from the beginning to the end.
Yes,
Just do it that way.
understanding
Right.
each book has a different theme according to the section. Once you understand what is the section, they all are on the same theme but are taking different aspects of it. And when you see them, it's literally you see before you dovetailing. And people today, the only way they know about dovetailing is when they open a drawer
And they see
of an
it,
older chest. They can see the dovetail. Otherwise, they don't have quite that idea, because everything is plastic from
And on
Taiwan,
runners or
from
something.
China.
Yeah. Let's
But
talk
that's the latest. The new book that I want to do, I got to raise money, because
Right.
I have to go to the Library of Congress. This is what I do. I go to Washington, I go to the Library of Congress,
Great place.
and I have a little hotel that's within walking distance. I show up, I read everything in the Library of Congress on that issue. It took me 5 years to read everything they had on Islam, and then I wrote Islamic Invasion. It took me 4 years to read everything they had on the Trinity. Then I wrote it. I write my books after I've done more than sufficient research so that you could have 165 footnotes in one chapter. And I make sure I'm in command of the subject. So I've got to go back to the Library of Congress. Probably it's going to take me only a year because there's very little written on the issue why the order of the books as they are. Very little.
Really?
No one has used the little gray cells. They just said, well, it is what it is. No, things are not what they are just because they are. There is a reason.
Back to what you said
Yes.
about atheists and anti-theists who
Oh, yes.
who question the gospel just based on you can't prove a book with a book.
Yeah, they accuse us of circular
yeah.
when we can't. We're not.
Yeah.
Matthew verifies that what Isaiah said happened, but that's scientific method.
Yeah, and certainly, and I know that we get non-believers, we get atheists, we get seekers, all kinds of people watch this show.
Well, the late night people.
Exactly. There's
And
a lot of late
I'm
night
glad
stuff.
you're here, late night people. Use your brain. Use your brain.
Yeah, and we got some people watching on NBC late at night.
Yeah.
So let's talk if we can about a little bit more. You really did do a great job of touching on archaeology. But let's talk about independent sources, okay?
Okay.
Not only what's written, but what has been discovered. Biblical archaeology is a very hot thing now. You can't turn on the History Channel without seeing something about it.
The last 100 years,
Yeah.
we have discovered more than in the last 1,000 years.
Really, really.
The French Revolution, the University of Paris, after it was taken over by the radicals, gave an official list of 125 mistakes in the Bible. Archaeology in the last 100 years has totally destroyed that list and showed it was stupid. Just because you don't know about something does not mean that it is wrong. Just because at that time the Bible mentions Hittites and Jebusites, and whoever heard of these stupid
Right.
things? This is clearly, no, we dug it up now. We now know.
Yeah, we do
They
know.
were there.
Yeah.
So what we're dealing with are arguments from silence. Now, have you ever heard of it's the atheist foundation called the Freedom from Religion Foundation?
have.
Well, I've debated Sheila Thompson, the head and founder, her son-in-law, Nicholas Barker, and all the rest of these atheists.
They're advertising on buses in San Francisco, by the way.
Oh, yes. Well,
Yeah. I was there last week.
I
and went,
debated
wow.
them all, okay? Tore them to pieces. You can get the debates, go to Faith to Finish, and you can listen to it. Or you get my book, The New Atheism.
I want to talk some
Now,
about
the
that, yeah.
Atheist Convention in San Diego said this is the most dangerous book. No one should debate Maury anymore. He doesn't play fair. He uses logic. Because I skin them
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Now, you can see this. I've done this on napkins and placemats.
Right.
I was debating an atheist professor at Juilliard School of Music.
I know
where had a
Juilliard,
right,
yes.
For 2 years
Yes.
in New York City. And I had him come up after he gave his little talk, and I drew a circle and said, now that represents you. Okay?
Okay.
I said, you know, if I
Accept that.
have to, I can put it down like this, and
Little stick
that,
man.
that's you. But this represents you.
Okay.
Okay? He said, okay. I said, then I drew a circle. Inside the circle represents what you've known, what you've read, where you've been. If
Right.
you've been to China, it's your education, what you know. Okay. Outside the circle, what you don't know,
Which is a lot.
which you haven't been. And I said, how much do you know in comparison to what you don't know? I said, wow. I said, look, you teach musicology. You cannot lecture on nuclear physics, can you? I said, well, okay. I said, well, let's be magnanimous. Put 1% is what you know.
That's got to be high, but yeah.
That's high. It should be 0.0000. I said, what's outside? He went, oh, duh. Now, he has the chalk. He writes the 99% out there. Now, this is after he told the students, there is no God.
Of course, like every professor.
Yes. And then I said, give me the chalk. Gave me the chalk. And then I said, is it possible God exists here?
Well, that seems like an appropriate moment to take a brief break. We'll be back with more on Las Vegas Tonight in our interview with Dr. Robert Morey right after these messages.